My name is Wes Region, and I'm going to talk about machine semantics in training scenario development with regard to military-related training, especially training that involves a lot of human social cultural dynamics and the understanding of the human domain in order to generate training that is relevant to the current operational environment. So CTC is a medium-sized company. We're not for profit, which in my case means that the software I develop for the government is provided to the government without license fees. Many of CTC's 1,400 employees have prior military experience. A lot of it, that experience comes from the S&T community. I, for example, spent 15 years with the Department of Defense at the Air Force Research Laboratory, studying applications of advanced computing technology to training and understanding human performance and enhancing human performance. Training scenario development, it kind of goes without saying, it's almost tautological to say that in order for the training to be effective, it needs to reflect accurately the nature of the operational environment that you're trying to train soldiers to go and perform in. In the current world, training scenario development therefore involves a lot of human socio-cultural preparation so that the soldiers can understand the social environment that they're going into and the various kinds of human networks that they're likely to encounter, what those networks are trying to accomplish, what their methods of accomplishing their goals are, and what material they have at their disposal to accomplish those goals. So I'm talking here about building training scenarios for groups of soldiers ranging from the platoon level up to the brigade and even battalion level. So from very, very small groups up to very large groups, like the kind of training that occurs at the National Training Center, where we put together scenarios involving lots and lots of human role players who act as the backdrop for training. And so and getting those role players sort of prepared to provide the training backdrop is a monumental problem. It's very expensive to get 300 individuals trained up as to what role they're going to play, what family they're going to be a member of, what nefarious network they're going to be a member of, what's their backstory. It's a lot like putting together a movie. It's very complicated, very expensive, and the goal of this work is to sort of to help soldiers do a better job, help training developers do a better job of developing the scenario for the human dynamic aspects of the training environment. And there's sort of two ways you can go about that. The training developers can go about that. First, event generation we're talking about where you develop a training scenario from scratch. You start with a blank piece of paper and you write down everything. Who are the role players going to be? What are the events that are going to happen? What will happen? How will the role players react if the soldiers in training behave in a certain way as opposed to another way? So that's a pretty monumentally difficult way to build training. Another way that you can build a large-scale training scenario is called scenario bending. And that's where you take an existing training scenario that has been used previously for another group of soldiers, and you modify it so that it reflects the realities of the new operational situation that the new group of soldiers are going to be training for. So instead of the Haqqani network in one part of the world, it might be a different kind of network, maybe even a criminal network. So scenario bending involves modifying existing training. Event generation involves building training from scratch. Scenario bending can also be accomplished by taking a real-world scenario that has occurred recently, for example, in Afghanistan, and then turning that into a training scenario. In both cases, they have to be, event generation or scenario bending should be accomplished by somebody who's deeply and fundamentally familiar with the world that they're, with the operational environment that we're trying to train soldiers to go into. So, our approach to helping soldiers or training developers accomplish these tasks is built on an ontology that we've developed under DARPA funding for the past 5 years, and on prior work that's been going on at the Air Force Research Laboratory for the past 15 years. We've developed an ontology called COMO, the Comprehensive Ontology for Military Operations, that has a very large, 37,000 concepts, understanding all aspects of military operations. As its event base is the Army Universal Task List, so it knows about all the tasks that the Army cares about. And as you know, the Army Universal Task List has grown over the past few years to deal with the realities of the current situation, counter IED problems, human network problems, etc. This ontology allows us to explicitly represent the political, social, tribal, familial, business relationships in an area of operations. So human entities are not just standalone entities, but they're members of groups, and those groups have agendas that they want to accomplish, and they set goals to accomplish those agendas, and then they assign members of the group to tasks to get those agendas accomplished. And modeling all that, that's all real straightforward for a human being to understand. What groups are in the area. The Haqqani network is in the area. What is their agenda? They would like to have foreign soldiers off of their soil. They would like to implement Sharia law in an area, in a certain area. And in order to accomplish that agenda, they set goals for themselves. Sometimes those goals involve tasks that to us seem like ridiculous. Like, I'm going to have a guy drive a car full of explosives in front of a shopping center and blow himself up. Well, those tasks, while they're nasty and nefarious, they're actually understandable if you understand what their agenda is, and what goals they've set for themselves to accomplish those agendas. They would like to terrorize the population, and they want the population to think that the reason everything around them is so terrifying is because these foreign soldiers are in their area. So understanding the crazy things they do requires an understanding of what their agenda is, what material they have at their disposal to accomplish that agenda, and how they believe they can accomplish the agenda. Again, all of that really easy to understand by a smart human being, not very easy to get a computer to understand those levels of craziness. So, I model a human network, and this is a many-to-many relationships. There are many networks in an area of operation. There's business networks, there's families, there's churches, which involve social networks. And any human being in an area of operation is likely to be a member of many different networks, some of which are known to the public, publicly known, and some of which are secretive networks. And so a network can have agendas, set goals for itself, have methods for achieving the goals, have, of course, members, which over here there are many members in a network. There can be alliances among networks, and there can be rivalries among networks. And sometimes those are shifting around over time. Now, down here, we have these networks. Haqqani is an example. Al-Qaeda is another example. The local business chamber of commerce is a third example. They have agendas and goals, and they set, in order to achieve their goals, they set tasks for their members. And they assign those tasks to members, and the nature of this members can be everywhere from the grand poopah, who's the leader of the whole network, down to the foot soldier who actually hides explosive material in the curb. And there's, of course, there's a full hierarchy in there. And the nature of the relationship is that people higher in the hierarchy establish the agenda, people lower who report to these high people in the hierarchy set goals that they think will accomplish the agenda of the higher people, and then they assign the tasks to foot soldiers who go out and get stuff done. Okay. I'm concerned here primarily with modeling nefarious networks, the networks that want to do bad stuff. Insurgencies, terrorist networks, criminal networks, drug smuggling, prostitution, and one can understand these nefarious networks at various levels of abstraction. At a high level of abstraction, you have something like, for example, the concept of an Islamic fundamentalist network, and there are many of them. I've mentioned two, Al-Qaeda and Haqqani. And at that high level of abstraction, they still have a lot of things in common. Generally, they want universal Sharia law wherever they're concerned with. They would like there to be no other religions in the area. They would like there to be no foot soldiers. They have goals to accomplish those agendas, such as to influence public opinion, to have no foreign military in the area, etc. And then they have tactical methods by which they think those things can be achieved. Haqqani and Al-Qaeda tend to like terror. They like to terrorize the population. Some other networks try to influence public opinion by positive means, by providing funding to hospitals. And, there's a full range. So, at the high level of abstraction, we have the network concept of Islamic fundamentalist networks. Lower down, we have a specific instance, and there are many specific instances, and I've talked about Al-Qaeda, where we can get more specific. They have pretty much the standard goals for an Islamic fundamentalist network, but their methods are different. What they really like to do is large-scale, coordinated terror attacks, like the 9/11, the classic example, or simultaneous attacks at multiple locations so that everybody knows that they did it all at the same time and they're very organized. Other instances have different goals, but understanding what a network is trying to accomplish is and I'm talking about machine understanding in this case. We have intelligence that tells us these events are happening. The intelligence picture is never complete. You never know everything about what these nefarious networks are doing. You learn little bits and pieces, but you can make sense of what you are learning if you know this kind of thing. Who are their members? What are their goals? What kinds of things do they like to do? And so this was conceived originally as an intelligence tool to help us understand the activities of networks, and we're now applying it to the problem of building training for soldiers who are about to go into that environment, including intelligence soldiers who are responsible for collecting and understanding intelligence. So, in conclusion, the building large-scale training exercises for soldiers, it has become completely different from what we were trying to do 20 years ago, where we were concerned with force-on-force operations against large-scale military forces. We're now concerned largely with counterinsurgency and counterterrorism, and building a training scenario to prepare soldiers to go into that environment involves modeling the human, social, cultural dynamics of the region and understanding the political, social, tribal, familial relationships in the area, and building training that accurately reflects that so that soldiers are prepared to go into that environment and survive.